Hello everyone, my name is Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor, and welcome to my channel. Today we are reviewing Married at First Sight, Season 16, Episode 7. On this channel we do a quick therapeutic review using the model, the Internal Family Systems model, to really kind of get to understand what's happening inside of these couples and also maybe potentially learn a little bit about ourselves. If you are returning, welcome back. Please like the video and of course subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. First we have Shaquille and Kirsten. Now this is about maybe the fourth episode in a row that they haven't had much camera time in the episodes. Again, like I said, that's concerning me because I don't feel like they have a lot of interaction. And it's not like this season is just packed, right, with drama, it's not really like that. And I don't know too if them cutting the episode shorter this season is contributing to that, but they just don't have a lot of interaction that's notable to really review this couple. They seem to be in this very kind of centered place, this steady place, like they're not making progress. Shaquille is still putting his best foot forward, and Kirsten is still being, she has this part of her that's being very reserved and careful with what she's saying. She often critiques Shaquille quite a bit and starts with negative characteristics or things that she doesn't like about him, but then she's like, but everything's gonna be fine, or but he is a sweet guy and we do have a lot in common. And so I'm not convinced that Kirsten's being 100% honest with us about how she's truly feeling about this relationship, because she's saying that she does feel chemistry, and then next week we see the clip with Pastor Kyle that she's saying there isn't chemistry. So I feel for Shaquille. I really do, because I know that he cares for her. He's made it very clear. So as they are at the dinner table, this is the first scene that they're actually speaking when everybody's at the dinner table together. And how do you rate them? How do you rate your relationship? Which I wish they would not do this, because numbers only give a very to put your relationship in down to a number is just, it's a recipe for a disaster. But Kirsten said, I did tell him that he jokes a lot and there's a time and a place for everything. She said to the ladies last episode, you have to stop men in their tracks and correct them. And I'm curious if that's really what she feels like she's supposed to do. Not to say that correction and conflict and addressing issues isn't a part of a relationship, because it absolutely is. And at the same time, he has been going through critique, right? It's kind of why he said what he said last week. I'm like, well, what do you like? Okay, you don't like that I joke, you don't like this, right? So she said, well, he does joke a lot, but there's a time and place for everything, so with the physical connection, which you heard us say that it is a 7. And Shaquille said, okay, I can rock with a 7. I want to know what he rates the relationship. I really do. And how he's really feeling. I feel like that also isn't being said. He hasn't opened up to say what's really there, right? If he's feeling rejected, if he's feeling left out, if he's not feeling wanted. I want to know, because I really get the sense that that's what's happening for him, because she has the wall up, right? And even though they are at the, in their room, they're laying down, he kisses her on her forehead, they're cuddling, they're still a wall up, right? There still hasn't been an intimate kiss, as far as we know. I just don't see where they're moving forward. And so maybe we'll see in the shared apartment if that happens, right? We'll see. And so then Kirsten makes a comment. Kirsten makes a comment about Shaquille's clothes being everywhere. He's like, hey, this is when I'm on vacation, but at home, like, I am very organized. I have my clothes color coordinated. Like, I'm organized. And so he's reassuring her, like, hey, there's not, you're not going to find another thing to critique me on, right? Like, I'm not messy. He said, I know how to keep organized. I do. Right? And so, again, the next scene is really them in the shared apartment, and they're talking about laundry and how to do the laundry. And she, Kirsten said, I'll do the laundry, but you got to tell me how you want your laundry, because, some people like this and some people like that. And he's like, I just throw my clothes in. She said, oh, me too, because, I don't like all those scents. And so, like, that's the bulk of their conversation. That's the bulk of their conversation. And that's really concerning for me. I'm hoping that next week's conversation with Pastor Cal will let us know a little bit more about where they are. But it's giving, like, there's a part of her that isn't being, like, she has her wall up, and he now has his wall up too, because of the critiques. That feels like rejection to him, because she's also not moving closer to him, right? He's made those advances. He's told her that, he still has butterflies from when she walked down the aisle. He's put forth, right? He's opened his heart to her, at least to let her know where he is. But she still hasn't moved towards him. And so now it feels like a little part of him is retreating a little bit. He's like, I'll still be present. I'm still here. I'll still open and share. But I'm not going to put myself out there to continually be critiqued and potentially rejected. That's what I'm seeing here with these two. Next, we have Nicole and Chris. And so, again, the first scene that they have, which, thank goodness, they have more camera time than Shaquille and Kirsten. But they're at the dinner table with everyone, right? And this is the last day of the honeymoon. I thought last week's episode was the last day of the honeymoon. I'm like, okay. But they're coming together and having the conversation of where are you guys at again, right? And they're rating each other. And Chris says, I rate where we are as an 8.2. And Nicole says, okay, you guys, I'm not lying. No, I was actually going to rate an 8.2 as well. And I said, this couple, man, they meet each other where they are. That's what I'll say. They meet each other where they are. There's some definite concerns, right, with this couple. And at the same time, though, they do meet each other where they are. They are vulnerable with each other. They share. So they have some great foundation, right? And Nicole's even said that, their relationship so far, would almost be a 10. But because they don't know a lot about each other, 8.2, we don't know how it's going to be when we come together, what our everyday life is like, all that stuff. The dogs, it's a thing, so we'll just say 8.2. And so then the next scene we see with them two is Chris. He is distraught. He's crying. And Nicole's like, hey, what's going on? And he said, well, the apartment has a 2-dog minimum, and so my dogs wouldn't be able to stay there. And he is just bawling. Now, I really thought that someone passed away in his family. And I'm seeing that he does definitely have a close relationship with his dogs, right? And at the same time, what can happen, I'm not saying this is happening, but what can happen is that sometimes people project their feelings onto their dogs, just like they project their feelings onto other people, right? They do that. And so he's concerned. He said the dogs have separation anxiety. They don't like to be too far away from him. And I said, oh, is it potentially that you have separation anxiety? Because now this kind of puts the puzzle piece together a little bit. We know there's a part of Chris that is very, very, very nice. And could this be a way of protecting him, right, from rejection, abandonment, people leaving him? We don't know, but this kind of comes together, right? And not that him being nice is a bad thing, but we all have ways, right? Ways that we protect ourselves. And none of them are neither good nor bad. They just are. It's how our brain works. We have different, called defense mechanisms or trauma responses. In internal family systems, we call these parts of us that are protecting us. And so for Chris, he has this part that is very, very nice. And we have seen how it has showed up in the relationship thus far. And he is distraught. He's really distraught about these dogs. And so Nicole, she jumps in. We see, right, this nurturing one, right? And she's present with him. Not in a way, because it's giving very much Alexis and Justin. However, Nicole is being sincere with the reassurance. Notice her tone versus Alexis' tone. Alexis' tone had a part of like almost condescending a little bit to Justin, right? And so for Nicole, she's actually being sincere, like we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna do what we need to do. If I have to let go of my dog for a moment, and she's getting tearful now, and I said, oh my goodness, both of you. And it's not that there's anything wrong, right? There's not. I want to really make sure I'm communicating this clear, that there's not anything wrong with the close attachment that they have to their dogs. It's just something to get curious about. It's something to get curious about. It's nothing wrong with loving your pet. Nothing wrong at all. And at the same time, there are different types of connection and relationships, right? There can be an enmeshed relationship with your pet, just like there can be an enmeshed relationship with a person, right? To where you are in sync with each other. Whatever you're feeling, I'm feeling. We're together. We're one, right? And so that may be potentially what's happening with both of them in their relationships with their animals, because right, they're so distraught with thinking about being without them for a period of time. And not that they wouldn't miss them, because again, I was a champion for Justin when he was about to give Maya away for Alexis, because that's his heart, right? And so Nicole's on the phone trying to handle things with her father. Her father's going to travel because she's not from Nashville, so her family isn't there. They're going to fly to make sure things are okay with the dog. And I'm like, wow, this is a lot of accommodations, right? For this situation, that maybe there could have been a simpler way to resolve this, right? But it's great to see her family support. It's great to see her support Chris, right? We're seeing that she definitely has this really supportive and reassuring part of her, this very nurturing part. And we saw this when she was meeting his family, when his family was telling her how fragile Chris is, how he gives his heart, and they're really scared about her, and they want her to tell him up front, like, if you're not into him, just let him know, right? Just let him know, don't drag it on. Remember, his dad said that. And she said, I know, I now see that I have to protect his heart. I'm like, oh no, that's Chris's job. And we're seeing like she's coming in, right? And being a nurturing person, which is beautiful. And at the same time, I want to see Chris step up, because there's nothing wrong with being emotional, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And at the same time, there does need to be a balance, right? A balance. And so if Nicole is coming to him and she is being reassuring, and he has a moment, he takes the beating, and he even partners with her to figure out a plan, right? So after they had this moment, they have they have a conversation with production to try to figure out things, and so they come together, right? So he's in the planning process now. So this is good. This is good for Nicole, because I guess my concern is because Nicole is such a strong personality, right? And she is a person that is going to take the reins, take charge. After a while, that part of her that takes charge, it may get a little weary and want Chris to take charge, right? And so I want to see if he has this ability to do this as well in moments of distress. If Nicole is in distress, is he going to be able to take the reins, right? We shall see. So they fixed the dog debacle, and they are in the shared apartment, and they're like, okay, we're here. And Nicole's like, all right, just tell me, do you have anything that you feel like we need to address? Like, be honest. And he said, no, I think we're okay. I just think that if we do have any issues or things that annoy us, I think we need to say it, in the moment. I don't like things fester. I don't like things to blow up. I don't want there to be drama. I don't like fighting. I want us to talk it out and really address it. He's like, because I know I'm going to have to make adjustments. She's like, yeah, I am too. And so we're going to have to, figure this out. And so she's like, great, I agree. We need to keep the communication open. And then Nicole asks, do you love me? And Chris says, no, not yet. And Nicole said, okay, I don't either. And so there's this part of her that's constantly doing a temperature check about if he's in love with her. There's a part that's concerned about her lovability. That is what I'm feeling, through this process, right? Because she has this part of her that is concerned. She knows she's a lot, and there's nothing wrong with being a lot, right? And so she has a big personality. She's like, I got to kind of tailor my personality, water it down a little bit when getting to know somebody. And that kind of seems to be right where this conversation even started with. Like, so tell me if there's anything, right? Anything that you feel like we need to address. Like, it's okay to be honest. Like, I know you're really nice, but I want you to tell me if there's anything about me that's getting on your nerves, right? And then, do you love me? So there's a part of her that's temperature checking to see if Chris is really being open and honest about where he is in this relationship, because she's concerned about her lovability. Okay. And that's going to come up, right? That's going to come up in this relationship. And I don't know if Chris is going to get weary about this question. And if this is something that the experts can walk them through, because she needs to be sure of her lovability. Nicole is a sweet girl. She's a bit quirky, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, I know I'm quirky. And so she has to be secure in her quirkiness. She has to be secure in her New York, big personality, talkative self, right? She has to be secure in that, to know that someone will love her, and that Chris is being open and honest. For one week, the only thing that we know that he wasn't being honest about was the fact that she holds hands a lot. That's a very small thing, but it's still a thing, right? And so we'll see if he's going to be honest with her. But he seems to have moments where he is honest, as they're waking up in the shared apartment, and she's like, oh man, it takes Chris a long time to wake up. And he said, well, I mean, I can't help but wake up because you talk a lot. Like, you talk a lot. So it seems like things are moving in the right direction, right? Like, he is being open about his experience of her. And Chris is really appreciating how her family has jumped in and really supported them with the dog situation. And it's making him feel like, ooh, this is what marriage is really about. And I will say, yes, it is a part of what marriage is about. I also want to see, right? I also want to see Chris kind of jump in and be there for Nicole in a similar fashion. Doesn't have to be the same way, right? But a similar fashion. I want to see if when Nicole is in distress, will he jump in and take charge? We shall see. Next, we have Gina and Clint. And so we are still at the moment where they are in distress, right? And Gina's having a moment in the confessional. She's like, I'm just pretty disgusted with what Clint stated, and he doesn't see anything wrong with what he said. And I'm not okay with that. So I'm going to take a moment and a beat to be by myself. And then we see Clint. He's on the beach with Chris, and then Eris is walking over, and he's like, hey, we've had a moment. We've had a moment. So Eris is like, all right, let me know what's happening. And so he clues him in, and Eris tries to kind of open Clint's view of the situation, as there's a part of him that, again, is jumping to defend his intent. He's jumping to defend his intent. He's like, my intent was not to bash her. My intent was just to let her know the type of woman that I have been used to in the past. And so Eris says, I hear you. I hear you. And at the same time, you're just getting to know Gina. You don't know if your words may have activated insecurity in her. You don't know her story, and words like slender and athletic, that could be something that makes her feel insecure. And so you have to validate her feelings. I said, okay, Eris. I feel like in part Eris is right? I feel like there needs to be a bigger discussion that was not in a space where they were heated, right? Because when you are in a arousal state, when you are upset and kind of in this like fight or flight mode, right? That it's hard to really be present and hear the other person. And so having a conversation when you're calm and talking about, hey, this thing of attraction, it's not okay on both sides for us, right? It's not okay on both sides for us. And I hear your concerns about what I said in front of everyone about my preference and how that offended you, right? And so validating that, because I feel like it's not just what Clint said, but it's the whole picture of both of them not really seeing each other as attractive, right? And so Chris was like, yeah, but, Clint, you got to be yourself. You got to be yourself, because Clint says, I don't want to change who I am. I don't want to change who I am. And oftentimes that is what comes up, right? When there is one saying like, okay, maybe you need to do this different. And a part of you saying, well, I've never done that before. A part of you jumps up like, that's not me. That's not me. Him validating her feelings really doesn't take away from Clint's identity. It doesn't. Right. But again, that's just a part of him fighting to be right in this moment. And Chris, in the part of him that's really nice, is kind of backing him up like, hey, Clint, you're a direct guy. That's who you are. Still be Clint. And Eris is like, hey, so think about the situation. Think about what you said. Do you feel like you could have said it differently? Like, do you feel like potentially what you said could have taken Gina aback? He's like, no, I could have said it differently, right? So then he's able to have a little moment to get some clarity for himself, right? Because that question kind of helped to calm his defenses down. Because in that moment, he was still fighting to be right with Eris. And so he asked the question, like, I hear you, Clint. I got you. You're a good guy. That's not what we're fighting about. I want you to see that potentially the words you chose could have hurt Gina. He said, okay. Also, when Clint, Eris, and Chris were on the beach, Clint stated like, this was not how this was supposed to go. I had orchestrated in my mind what was going to happen. And I feel like probably every couple says that on Married at First Sight. You do have a way that you feel. A part of you has a storyline of how it's supposed to go. But we know not everything's going to be perfect, and not everything's going to go to plan. And so I'm curious. I'm curious how that part of Clint, who had a plan that things were supposed to be perfect, and now that it's not perfect, usually it's like, if things are perfect and they're not perfect, that means that the relationship is done. And that's not the case, right? We know that's not the case in everyday relationships. There's going to be bumps. There's going to be ups and downs and hills and valleys. And you have to be with each other as you're riding them. And then hopefully there'll be less, right? There'll be less hills and valleys as you continue to grow with each other. Because now you're learning each other, you're being a safe space for each other, you're communicating openly with each other, and you're meeting each other where you are, right? And so I'm curious if this part of him that's like, this is not how it was supposed to go, is now like throwing in the towel now because of that, right? And so they come together and they talk it out. And then this is where the dinner table discussion happens, right? And Clint is addressing the whole group, and we see it's so the irony of it all, right? That there's a part of Nicole that really doesn't like Clint, and there's a part of Clint that does not really care for Nicole. And they seem to have some similarities, right? It reminds me a little bit of Elijah and Lindsay a little bit. But Chris is talking a lot. And Nicole said at the after party that conversation or his speech / apology lasted for about 30 to 40 minutes or so. And he still really didn't like apologize to everyone. He just talked about how he knew his words could have hurt people. And so apologies are something that is an area of growth for people, especially if they have not done it. If they have not practiced it, they don't have the language. And then he does have this part of him, right, that is fighting to be right. He's still fighting to say this was not my intent. Like, I did not mean to hurt you ladies at all. Got it. But you did. And I know this can be a sore space, right? This could be a sore space for people because they're like, if my intent wasn't to harm, why am I apologizing? Well, if your intent wasn't to harm, I think that's something that you can communicate after the apology. I can see how my words impacted you, and I'm sorry for that. I also want you to know my intent was just to let you know that, hey, I have dated, right, slender women in the past, more athletic women in the past. That's my preference. But Gina's beautiful. You women are beautiful. I'm not trying to take anything away from any of you. And if I have made you feel less than or anything like that, I apologize. Right? It can happen. And so after Clint addresses the whole table about the debacle that they had at the last gathering, Shaquille says, "Hey, I want to check in. Gina, how are you feeling?" And she said, "Well, it was a lot for me, and at the same time, I'm just glad that he apologized, he owned it, and I understand that sometimes we say things and we're like, oops, I didn't mean it that way. I'm willing to give him that grace, right?" And so that's great that she's able to do that. She has capacity to do that and to move forward with the relationship. Now Gina did say that she has a part of her that's a runner, right? She has a part of her that in the sign of one thing happening, she runs. She's like, oh, this is over. This is done. And so we know Clint, right, has a part of him that has the idea of how it's supposed to go perfectly, and it has not been perfect. And so that part may be potentially saying, I'm out of here, right? Because it said, all right, this is giving me a lot of thinking to do, and I'm really thinking about this relationship. Gina saying, part of me is a runner. How is this going to show up in the relationship when things get hard? Are these parts telling them, okay, one more thing. If one more thing happens, then we're out? Or has the thing really been resolved and they're still in it to win it? When it comes to the ratings, Gina said that, hey, I feel like I'm a Debbie Downer, but I'm going to say we're at a 5. because, it's been a rocky road. And Clint said, hey, 5.5. And so everybody says, hey, we understand. We support you guys. If you guys are in it, then we're with you. We're supporting you. And as they're leaving to return back home, we'll see. We'll see how this shared apartment goes. Because I feel that this is when the rubber will meet the road for Clint and Gina. Next, we have Airris and Jasmine. Now, after the debacle with Clint and Gina, they're at the table, right? And they're rating each other's relationships, which we all know it's not the best thing to do, especially in a situation with Airris and Jasmine, as they are not on the same page and really haven't communicated with each other that they're not on the same page. Now, Jasmine stated that, after this happened, that I knew my number was going to be higher than yours. And Airris has had a conversation with the gentleman about where his attraction level is with Jasmine. Now, the rating was for the overall relationship, not just attraction. But it also seems like there's more than just attraction that potentially Airris isn't feeling, right? And so Jasmine says, hey, there's been some things. He said he's never been in love before. We've had some challenges, and I'll say 7.58. And Airris says, okay, well, I'll say a 7. I'll say a 7. That's where we are. And, we're strangers, It's only been a week. It's only been a week. That's like the theme that Airris really wants to communicate with Jasmine. It's only been a week. And everybody's face, especially the gentleman, is like, that's not what you said. You told us 3 or 4. Like, that's what you told us, right? And so she sees this at the after party, and she is like taking it back. Really hurt. And she also talks about the challenges that they had during the honeymoon as they shared each other's social media accounts, and they saw the people that they had mutual friends. How do you know them? And one of their mutual friends was the woman he was dating 2 weeks before they got married, or actually, the day before he was chosen for this experiment, and he slept with her. They have a mutual friend that he has dated who recently slept with Airris. I feel Jasmine, Jasmine has a part of her, right? She's a minister's daughter. She's a pageant girl. She has also, she stated, had a tendency to stay too long in a relationship. I'm curious of where Jasmine's voice is in all of this. I'm really curious where Jasmine's voice is in all of this, especially as the episode continues, right? When she speaks up for herself. I wanted to see that interaction about her finding out the mutual friend was someone he just slept with, because I want to see in true form how she advocates for herself, how she uses her voice to let Airris know how she feels. Because it seems like Airris is communicating, right, to some degree, but Jasmine really isn't. She's just like, okay, husband, and that's like her coverall. That's coverall for what she's really feeling and thinking, right? And so, yeah, she has this part of her that doesn't speak up for herself. And I'm concerned about that. And so Chris speaks up for her a little bit and says, well, do you feel that you will be open to falling in love with Jasmine? Right? And I don't know if maybe even Chris sees a little bit of himself in Jasmine, because he's been in situations where he was not, like, it was not reciprocated. And Airris says, well, it's only been a week. Right? It's only been a week. And that's not really comforting, right, for Jasmine. It's not. And so Eris is checking in with Jasmine because, their numbers were different and he's like feeling some guilt about that. And, Jasmine said, again, I already knew our numbers weren't going to match. And, that's and is what it is. And Eris said, well, because I'm really getting, friend vibes. That's what I'm getting right now. And I feel like, hey, that's a good thing, potentially because, friends that can grow into something, if I knew that if something were to happen to me, like if I got in a car accident, like you would be there. You would be there. You would be at the hospital. If I needed my behind rubbed, like you would do that. And I guess that's a compliment. At the same time, I guess there's a part of me that is concerned, right? Because Jasmine is so present for him, right? She's present for him. She's cooking breakfast. She's feeding grapes, right? She is very present for Eris. What is she getting? What is she getting in return? Is there a part of her that has a concern about that? In the confessional, she said, I'm not trying to be anybody's friend. But she did not say how she feels about it. She just responded, I'm not trying to be someone's friend. Okay. But how did him saying that he gets friend vibes make you feel? How did the fact that you know someone that he just slept with the day before this process make you feel? Because on the after party, she said, I've been preparing myself to be a wife for a long time. And Chris said, well, it seems like Jasmine's prepared to be a wife, but it doesn't seem that Eris is prepared to be a husband. And then, as they are having a shared apartment, right? She's coming in, he's coming in, he's setting rules and guidelines about what he wants. And she's like, okay, husband, okay, husband, okay, husband. She's like, yeah, my husband has a lot of accommodations in like 5 minutes. Jasmine, do you have anything to say about that? Do you have anything to say about that? Where's her voice? I want her voice. I need her voice to be heard. I need her to use it. I'm really concerned about it getting lost and this all being about her vying for Eris' attraction and attention and affection and her not saying how all of this is making her feel. Like that's just as important. That's just as important, especially since he has no worries about how she's going to show up for him because she has been showing up for him, but she has all the concerns about how he's going to show up for her. When they go to Eris's apartment, she sees his gym, she sees his kick it room, and she's like, okay, so you do have alone time. You really do need alone time, and it's just not you making an excuse not to be next to me. Do you hear that? There's a part of her that is concerned that he's making excuses not to spend time with her. I'm really concerned about Jasmine and what she's really thinking at this point in the process. Now, they did get to the bedroom and they saw his dad's obituary in this moment, right? And that's, it's very sentimental, and him sharing and opening that with her. And he talked about it being a double funeral because his uncle died 2 days before. And Eris said sometimes he feels like a little boy waiting for his daddy to come home. And I'm sure that little boy is there, right? That misses his dad, wants his dad because he has so many things that he admires about his dad. The gym shoes were a big thing, and he has them, right, secured. It's a very guy thing to have his gym shoes, right, to make sure they don't get any creases. They stay in good condition. And even when they move into the shared apartment, the room is 313, and that's the area code for Detroit, Michigan. And so, he's seeing this as a good omen. Like anything that's connected to his dad is something that's just like he holds near and dear to his heart. That's wonderful. I'm also concerned about the imbalance in this relationship, especially when it comes to Jasmine not advocating for herself and saying how she's feeling in this moment. I got some concerns. We'll see if the experts are able to work this out. I don't have a lot of hope for the experts. Maybe Dr. Pia can meet with the couples, but we see Pastor Kyle is meeting with them, so we shall see. Last we have Dominique and McKinley, and so again they're starting at the the dinner table with everyone, and Dominique and McKinley both agree 7.5, right? So this is McKinley saying this, and he took a long time to kind of get there. Like, things have been going and and this and that, and it's been a lot. And I know I've had a lot to work on. I thought I was funny, but maybe I'm not funny, and it's showing up in this relationship this way. So okay, 7.5, right? And so Dominique agrees. Dominique agrees to that number. As they get back to the room, Dominique says, I really want you to want to do the things. I want you to want to do the things that I want to do. And he's like, yeah, I actually, that's just who I am. I don't want to do these things. I don't want to ride a horse. I don't want to go mountain climbing or whatever whatever Dominique wants to do. He's like, I don't want to do these things, but I will do these things for you. Like, I'll be open to them, and I will say that, and I'll communicate that. And I'm curious if Dominique's ever been in a situation where she's had to work with somebody who was different from her. Like, I wonder if all of her friends are adventurous, or if she's had a friend who's like more introverted and more laid back and doesn't want to, or if what she's communicating is like, I don't want this in my husband, right? I don't want you to be like this. I want you to be another way. And for McKinley to hear that, that's a bit discouraging, right? That's a bit discouraging because he's trying, and he spoke up, right? He spoke up. He said, I'm being critiqued a lot. I'm being critiqued quite a bit, and I'm giving you some grace, but I don't see where you're giving me any grace, right? Again, he's doing all of the correction and showing his effort, but Dominique really, I'm curious if she's showing some, right? She says she's being patient with him. And maybe she is in Dominique's spectrum of patience, right? But it also, it seems like, there's an idea of what she wanted, and he's not what she wanted. She did say, though, that potentially dating in Nashville has made her put some walls up and made her insides a little hard. And so that's something for Dominique to get curious about. If she has, right, parts of her that are protecting her more vulnerable spaces. Because again, and I've said this in previous reviews, that this couple hasn't really shared much about their life, like with each other. They don't really know a lot about Dominique. We know she has a great relationship with her mom. Her dad's not in her life. She loves Nashville. She likes cowboy boots and catfish and horseback riding, right? But Dominique, what do we know about Dominique? She's an old soul, right? Okay, tell me more about your life. What was it like trying to be there for your mom while she was parenting you? Like, what was that like for you? Again, don't know much about McKinley as well. Like, it's not just Dominique. We don't know much about McKinley either. And that's concerning. That's concerning, right? At this point in their relationship. Yes, it's only been a week. Thank you, heirs. And at the same time, just sharing a little bit more at this process, especially with the relationship being so new, I would have hoped that they would have been sharing more at this point. And so Dominique states that attitude, speaking to McKinley's attitude, is something that's contributing to, like, it's a part of how she is romantically and physically attracted to someone. Like, she wants her person to have, a great attitude, not to be complaining and things like that. That is impacting how she's connecting with him. And so they're in the shared apartment and they're talking about expectations. And McKinley's like, hey, I clean and I cook a little bit, And so Dominique's like, all right, well, we can learn together. And Dominique says, I'm trying to see, I don't think it's perfect. And I'm trying to see why the experts matched us. Maybe it's because what McKinley wants, is what I want. And so the area of growth he has, like, I'm supposed to help him, right, get there. And I got to show a lot of patience to help him get there. I don't see how she feels like McKinley was matched for her. Like, she didn't say that. And I'm curious if she feels like that's not the case because he's not what she wants. Maybe there's a part of her that feels like the experts got it wrong. And so they see McKinley's space, which is, we know, is at his best friend's parents' home, and it's in the basement. And she's like, oh, this isn't even like your space. You don't have a lot. You're not rooted. You've went from Michigan to California to Nashville. Like, what's going to keep you here? What's going to keep you, what's going to keep you in line, right? What's going to keep you focused and steady in this relationship? Could you leave Nashville? Like, that it's giving her pause. It's giving her concern. And she's also concerned about the fact that he doesn't have a place for himself. And he's like, hey, I just moved here. So I know I was going through this process and I didn't want to get a place that I didn't want and then have to be out of my lease. Like, I just wanted to wait until we came together and picked a place with each other. And Dominique is taken aback by that. And she's concerned. And there's a part of her that's like drawing conclusions about who McKinley is because of that, right? And I think because there's been so many things at the beginning, that's why this is happening, right? Okay, why did you not wait? Like, is there a lack of initiative, right? There's a part that's making conclusions about who McKinley is because of the situation. Not to say that I don't understand why that's happening. I do. And at the same time, this is the part where I wish, right? Not saying I know this allegedly, right? Allegedly, McKinley was recruited for the show and moved to Nashville because of that. I just wish there could be some transparency, even maybe off camera, for him to say that so that she would understand why he is not rooted in Nashville, if that's the case, right? It's not looking good for a lot of these couples, unfortunately, so early on. Usually in the honeymoon, we're like, okay, but not so much. You guys let me know. Let me know what you see with these couples, especially with Doggate, the sequel, and with McKinley and Dominique, with Eris and Jasmine, Clint and Gina, Shaquille and Kirsten. I don't see a lot of forward movement happening in the near future for these couples. Let me know your thoughts. If you're still here, of course, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, be cool, be calm, be centered.